Thanks and hello and welcome to another Good Design is Good Business series. Today's SOA briefing is Enhance Your Rational Software Architect Experience with the Service-Oriented Analysis and Design Model Accelerator. Our guest speaker today is Lee Ackerman, Vice President and Chief Technology Officer for the Emphasis Group. And I will turn it over to Lee a little bit later after this brief introduction to Rational. My name is, and I'm your host today, Roger Snook. I am the Worldwide Enablement Leader for the Offering Strategy and Delivery team within IBM Rational, and you can reach me at any one of those links provided on the right-hand side of the slide. Our really simple agenda today, as you're looking at your screen now, is we're just going to simply identify three quick things. SOA is still a strong contender in the market. Rational Software Archtect is still a market-leading tool. And you're going to learn how the Emphasis Group helps enhance Rational Software Archtect with their offering that we'll talk about today. Today's session is being recorded. If you are opposed to that, please hang up now. This session will be posted later for your download and review. And questions and answers will be taken a little bit later in today's session. So all lines have been muted for now until we open it later for questions. So as I said, in our real simple agenda today, SOA is still strong. The Gartner Group, of course, one of the well-known analysts in the market, states that SOA and business process management continue to be the centerpiece of attention. The DevX study shows that Agile and SOA will continue to grow. And, of course, this is not just an IBM story. In fact, if you just search for Microsoft SOA or open source in any of your favorite search engines, you're going to find that SOA is continuing to be a very strong build-out. It's not just the architecture that's in place now, but it's also the building of all the applications on top of this architecture that is continuing to grow in this market, and such as the rise for tools to help our customers get there faster, better, and cheaper. Incidentally, when I talk about Microsoft, I will also mention that RSA, which is our market-leading tool for doing design in SOA and elsewhere, does also support Microsoft.NET technology. So it provides capabilities to generate .NET languages such as Visual Basic or C#. So it's not just a language-specific environment for Java, although it is finely tuned for Java and WebSphere. And so RSA, as the still market-leading tool, of course, if you weren't aware, it exceeded its internal goals for 2011, and we are left with several wonderful case studies. These are all links that are available outside of IBM, so on the external site, most notably in industries such as energy, so Office Energy, which produced a better energy management solution using Rational Software Architect, a Chinese museum, which created a virtualized tour using Rational Software Architect, amongst other Rational products. Telco industry, a government client in Germany, and then finally in Denmark, another utility company making the most use of an intelligent grid using SOA and Rational Software Architect. So the build-out continues, and for the build-out, our customers are looking for architecture and design and construction tools, and we provide that. Moving on to the next slide, I wanted to announce that this DeveloperWorks group that the announcement was posted to is part of a larger initiative that we're undertaking called Innovate 365. If you've attended an Innovate conference, you know what a wonderful opportunity is to meet your peers and or IBMers that you've worked with in the past, perhaps, or have had technical support or briefings from, and to share best practices and work towards the betterment of your software. And so Innovate 365 is an initiative we're working on to bring that experience on more regular basis through virtual sessions like today. And so if you're interested in learning about those efforts and other events, please make sure you click on this image for the link, and I will provide that link also in the chat window. But join this, and you'll also see an opportunity to join some of our future events, such as Java refactoring, best practices, or innovative modeling techniques that we're going to be demonstrating in the future. Okay? And then finally, the Innovate 365, as well as the topic we are discussing today, aligns well with the strategies that IBM has posed. If you look at the most recent annual report for IBM, you notice there's a lot about integration within the existing IT environment. And so what you're seeing here actually is a diagram that is built with Rational Software Archtect using the integrated architecture extension that shows things like the strategic mission. So IBM wants to have a strategic mission of delivering integration and innovation to clients, and a big part of that is SOA. Of course, integrations amongst all the Rational products is also another strategic mission, and there are a lot of different capabilities that we provide throughout the Rational portfolio to provide that. Integrating designs with Jazz with Design Manager, and that's one of the products and projects that we're talking about. Of course, addressing open source or deployment planning and automation, another key topic to help integrate into the customer environment further. And so this is just using Rational Software Archtect to help communicate the strategy and design for where we're going. Of course, today's topic is part of the SOA emphasis, and without further ado, then I will go ahead and transfer control over to Lee. Lee, let me bring up your slides here. And Lee, again, is Vice President and Chief Technology Officer for the Emphasis Group. So, Lee, thank you for joining today's session.
Thanks, Roger. I'm thrilled to be here. Happy to share and discuss the Service-Oriented Analysis and Design Model Accelerator. Let's make sure I've got control. I do. All right. As Roger was saying, I'm with a company called the Emphasis Group. I see a few familiar names in the attendees. I was with IBM and IBM Rational for a number of years, and it's good to see some familiar names and hopefully meet a few new folks today as well. All right, let me click to our next slide here. And what I'm going to do today is introduce everybody to the Model Accelerator, what it is, why you care about it, the benefits of using it. And we'll also do a live demo, and I'll highlight some of the capabilities that the product provides. With that said, the best place to start here is at the beginning. What is the SOA Model Accelerator? This, again, is a product provided by the Emphasis Group. It is an extension to Rational Software Archtect for WebSphere software. An alternative way to create the base product is to have RSA with the Software Architect extension for SOA and WebSphere. And really our goal in creating the product was to provide an enhancement amplification of the capabilities provided by RSA. RSA has, as a foundation, a great number of features and useful features for designing and developing SOA solutions, and we really look to complement those features and enhance them. With the Model Accelerator, we support architects and designers as they work through service-oriented analysis and design and across multiple phases, including business modeling, service identification, and service specification, with support for SOA governance at design time across each of these phases. In using the Model Accelerator, I've used the terms amplify, we leverage automation, and as the name implies, we're really looking to accelerate the design and development of high-quality SOA solutions. In using the Model Accelerator, we look to eliminate the fog and friction that often comes with development projects, and I'll dive into that a little more in a slide or two. And we really want to use automation as a way to free people up and let people focus on doing what they do well, which is be creative and problem solvers. The Model Accelerator is comprised of a number of different automations that are built using 3 different technologies within RSA. And we're using the standard extension mechanisms as provided by RSA. If you've come across some of my materials, writing presentations in the past, you'll know that I'm a big fan of the RSA platform and its capabilities for capturing and automating best practices. There are 3 different approaches that we've taken to provide the automation of the accelerator. We use UML patterns, which allow us to provide reference to automate generation of elements in a model and really infuse best practices within a model. We use model constraints. We're able to, on demand, request that our models be validated and ensure that they adhere to best practices within the design, elements are used properly, and when issues are flagged, guidance is given as to how to resolve the issue, and in many cases we drive people towards patterns that help them solve those issues. And then working with those 2 elements are a set of BERT-based reports. We can share these reports either as PDF, HTML, Word documents, and they provide reference, status, input into reviews, and we really strive to provide not just a repetition of what's in the model, but an interpretation and provide summary and go beyond just data, but really provide information that's useful in feeding into our governance effort, adhering to our enterprise architecture guidance, and also into design reviews, and also just communicating and enabling others in regards to the design of the solution. I'd mentioned that the Model Accelerator, one of the things we're trying to do, and I think we are doing, we're getting great feedback so far, is addressing the idea of the fog and friction of development. And so the idea with fog is, are we able to gather reliable information and reduce the fog or uncertainty surrounding our efforts? So when we apply this idea to SOA, are we able to keep in mind and answer the questions, what are our business goals? Why have we created these services? What's the impact of changing a goal? What's the impact of a business goal on our services, or vice versa? If we have to change a service, what business goals may be impacted? And a key question here at the bottom is, which services should we invest in? Much like any other development project, we usually come up with many more options, possibilities than it makes sense to develop. We need to be able to really apply a litmus test, say, where we are making sure we're making the right investments. The idea with friction is, can we avoid obstacles? Can we reduce delays? Can we avoid unnecessary and unexpected steps? How do we streamline the effort? Having the right information takes us quite a bit forward, but we still want to reduce, eliminate, and make things go as smoothly as possible. Some of the questions that go along with friction, why does this take so many clicks? How do we reduce the number of steps in our process or the number of things we need to do? How do we know what is the best practice? When we look at a number of elements, either from the domain-specific language we're using or some elements already in a model, how do we know how these elements are supposed to collaborate to realize a solution? How do I start? One of the most daunting things, whether you're writing a book, an article, or designing software, it's daunting to start with a blank sheet of paper. Where do I start? What elements do I need, and how do they work together? How do I support traceability, design reviews? As we talked about, what is the impact of changing a goal? What happens if we change the service? Without having traceability between these elements, it's difficult to answer those questions. In terms of design reviews, there's been some great research done on design reviews over the years showing that this is as effective as quality assurance efforts in terms of increasing the quality of a solution. Yet oftentimes design reviews are skipped because the effort to produce the input into those efforts is too onerous. If we look at a couple of key service-oriented analysis and design scenarios, we get some insights into why and the value that the Model Accelerator brings to any project. If we look at the bar graph in the top left, I've had to massage the numbers a little bit because showing the numbers on a graph led to a graph that wasn't very readable. When we look at these scenarios, leveraging the automation the accelerator provides and comparing it to manual effort, we usually see that using the Model Accelerator allows us to do tasks measured in seconds, whereas if we try and do these things manually, we're looking at hours and days. And so you either need a logarithmic exponential type graph, and I wanted to put something in here just to highlight the fact that there is a significant drop-off in the amount of time and effort required as we go to RSA, and yet again another significant drop-off as we look to use the Model Accelerator in addition to using RSA. So the three of the key scenarios I focused on here are best practice application and adherence, business IT alignment, and design reviews. So if we compare the Model Accelerator to attempting to do these efforts manually, let's first talk about best practice application and adherence. When using the Model Accelerator, we can use UML patterns within our model to guide us in terms of our business modeling, our service identification, and service specification. We're able to apply the patterns in seconds, and it really comes down now to creative problem solving. If we contrast that with the manual approach, we can go out and consult specifications, processes, and other experts, but we have to internalize that best practice and figure out how to realize that in the model and apply it manually. The results as we compare the two approaches is that if we use the Model Accelerator, we go quick, we get consistent application of the best practice, and we also get insight into where and how patterns are used by leveraging the reports that the Model Accelerator provides. If we look at the manual approach, there's inconsistency in the application of best practices. Even if people are sitting in cubicles beside each other, you're going to see deviation of implementation of best practices. And we all know that the reality is oftentimes you're not right next to the person. They're down the hall, across the city, or across the world. Things tend to diverge. We also end up with uncertainty. It's very difficult to understand where and how best practices have been used. It becomes a lengthy, highly labor-intensive effort then to go through looking at the design, however it's captured, or the actual implementation to try and figure out where and how best practices have been used, or at least attempted to be used. If we look at business IT and alignment, this is a key principle of doing SOA solutions. We, as IT people, are an enabler of the business, and we need to make sure that as we are creating a solution, we are driven by the business. We understand the needs of the business, and the solution is able to help us realize those requirements. Through the use of model validation and report generation, which are created on demand, generate in seconds and provide insights into whether the models created correctly, where best practices are used, the relationships between our goals and our services, and the validation we've done to ensure we are producing the right services, we're able to build the right solution. We're able to see these elements, these services are the right ones and map to our goals. In contrast, if we're following a manual approach, typically people use presentations, spreadsheets, they're drawing pretty pictures, but those approaches do not scale, they do not provide traceability, and typically, even at the beginning, they are not accurate, but from the moment they are created, they start to go out of date. To be able to keep them up to date, it's a constant, vigilant effort, or we're starting from scratch if we wait too long. If we carry that idea over to design reviews, we see with the Model Accelerator, we're able to leverage the same approaches. We're using the model validation, we're using reports that are generated, and leverage the information in the model elements, the model relationships, the built-in traceability, occurrences of where patterns have been used. We're able to generate reports in seconds that can feed into our design review process. Comparing it again to the manual approach, if we're preparing for design reviews, again, we default back to those spreadsheets, the presentations, the pretty pictures. We have to figure out the relationships of the elements manually. The reports, the output are only as good as the person producing them at that moment in time, and we spend many hours preparing for these efforts, and because of the time required, design reviews are often skipped. And so again, it comes down to being able to use the Model Accelerator. We can go through these scenarios, delivering results in seconds, whereas if we're using a manual approach, we're doing this in hours to days.
Again, I think this is an important fact that with RSA's success in the market of maybe over 90,000 licenses out there, this is a great place to provide an opportunity to enhance the experience for our customers that are trying to realize SOA.
All right, Roger, I'm sharing my screen. Can you see Rational Software Archtect?
Absolutely, yes.
All right, excellent. I will apologize in advance. I'm running this via a virtual image. It's a little bit sluggish, so now my seconds become a handful more seconds, but we'll generally be as speedy as we can be. All right. So I'm using RSA for WebSphere software. As I highlighted on the first page, the SOAD Model Accelerator is an extension to RSA for WebSphere, or RSA with the SOA WebSphere extension. I like to start my demos at the end and really highlight some of the information we're able to pull out of a model leveraging a modeling environment, things that you just don't get using a spreadsheet, using a document, or using a pretty picture. Those things are great to create, quick and dirty, but we lose the ability to do traceability and the ability to do really an analysis of the elements that should be captured in a model. I've kicked off the report here, and actually I'll just go back here for a second. I've pre-created configurations for 3 reports. So the Model Accelerator ships with a goal service model report, a pattern instances report, and a service litmus test report. Mentioning the reports are based on BERT. We have 3 reports: a goal service model report, pattern instances, and service litmus test. As you create the reports, you're able to specify the output that you desire: Word, HTML, PDF, PowerPoint, Excel. I've set up a report here to work with one of my demo models. I'll generate the report here. Goal service model report. I've created quite a few different goals, services, capabilities. With loading BERT and generating the report, we take about 20 seconds or so with this report. The key thing here is that as we look to define and identify our services, Rational SOMA, and we've worked very hard to adhere and align with Rational SOMA as our approach. Rational SOMA identifies a number of different approaches to how you can identify services. You can use BPMN, and RSA out of the box provides capabilities for working with BPMN. You can work with goal service modeling. You can do business use case realization. You can work with your domain model, or you can work from existing assets. And so we've tried to provide some support for some approaches that had not yet been automated in RSA. So out of the box, RSA provides you some BPMN support. If you are looking to work with goal service modeling, we've added some enhancements to make your life easier. So you'll notice here our first report has come up. I'm going to shrink the magnification a little bit. So the idea here with the goal service model report is we're looking at what are our business goals and how are we realizing them in our solution. We start off our report with a couple of summary graphs. Our first one, our goal service inventory, highlights the total number of goals, the capabilities or candidate services in our model, and the service interfaces in our model. The realization summary chart that's just below it now does a little bit of interpretation of these artifacts and says, of our business goals, how many of those are realized by a candidate service or a service interface? How many of our goals are not yet realized? And of those candidate services or service interfaces in our model, how many of those are not connected back to a business goal? We've called those orphaned elements. And so just at this point already, I start to see some things I need to investigate in my model. Why do I have so many candidate services defined that aren't traceable back to a business goal? Why do I have so many service interfaces that are not traceable to a business goal? There may be legitimate reasons why that situation exists, but it gives me, as either an architect that owns the model or going into design review or an associated architect, it gives me insights into the fact that there's work that needs to be done here. If we start to go into the detailed section of the report, we see that for the realized business goals, there is an overview of each goal. It highlights the performance metrics around that goal. What are we trying to measure? How is it going to change? When is it going to change by? What is its priority? And then it goes into the details. How do we realize this business goal? Is there a direct supporting relationship from a goal to a candidate service? And from that candidate service, is there already a service interface realizing the candidate service? Let me go down here. Towards the bottom of the page, we see we have a case where there is a service interface that is directly supporting a business goal. This may be an issue within the organization. It may be that as our best practice, we never skip the step of identifying a candidate service. Or it may be that it was clear from the outset that we didn't need a candidate and the service is definitely being applied. It's going to depend on the best practices we are following, but the report highlights and captures, and we can act upon that information. I'm going to scroll down a little more in the report. Some repetitiveness there. Actually, let me just go to this next table. And there's a table of contents to the left that allows you to bounce between the elements in the report. We then have a set of tables here at the end that look at our unrealized business goals, our orphan capabilities, and their fully qualified path through our model to find those orphan capabilities, and then another table at the end that provides a list of our orphan service interfaces. And again, both of those orphans are interfaces or candidate services that are not tied to a business goal. So that's our one report. I'm going to close that one. And I generated our service litmus test report. So a recognized best practice both in Rational SOMA and in other approaches to doing SOA design is to perform a service litmus test on your candidate services, and as you move forward with your services, ensuring that you are making the right investments. So again, we're leveraging the information in our model that's already part of our design efforts and really trying to use that data and present it as information. So in this case, we start off with a summary that highlights how many candidate services are tested, how many are not tested, how many have passed our testing, and how many have started testing, but the testing is not yet complete. And it gives us a nice overview in terms of understanding where we are in figuring out which services we want to invest in. And I'll use the table of contents here again instead of scrolling. So we start off after the summary with a list of all of the services that have or candidate services that have passed the service litmus test. Again, it's fully qualified paths to the elements within your model. If I jump down a layer, we can see that there are a set of tests that have not yet successfully completed the litmus test. When we conduct a service litmus test, we evaluate a candidate service from 5 different perspectives. We look to understand, is that service or candidate service business aligned? Does it have an external description? Is this service going to be reusable? Is it technically feasible? And is it composable? Can it be used with other services to realize higher order value? When reading these tables, all of these questions are answered true, false. The red check mark indicates that a true has been provided. An empty checkbox means false. And if there is no indication of value, the question has not yet been answered. And so by going through these tables, we can see where we currently stand with each of the litmus tests. And if we go to the end of the report, we also have a table listing each of the candidate services that exist in our model that have not yet been tested. That is our service litmus test report, and I'll run one more report here, our pattern instances report. In this case, what this report is doing is it's analyzing our model instance and looking for instantiations of patterns that have been included with the SOAD Model Accelerator, and it will give us insights into where and how those patterns have been used in the design of our SOA solution. So when we think about either in realizing our enterprise architecture and following best practices, whether it's adhering and following through with our governance, where we want to make sure people are using those best practices, how they're using the best practices, and the impact of using the best practices, this report and the underlying model feeds into those efforts. So again, we start off with a nice summary report here. And the nice thing is, you know, if needed, as we are following our development approach and, you know, we're putting out our information boards, this is something that would be easy to put out on a website, print off and put on a cubicle, and really just feeds into the information sharing that's needed to keep everybody going in the same direction. So looking at the summary graph, what you'll see here is that it lists out a number of different pattern instances. The SOAD Model Accelerator ships with 15 UML patterns across business modeling, and that's the purple bars, service identification, which are the yellow bars, and then this teal-green color is for patterns related to service specification. The summary indicates the number of instances of each pattern instance across the model that we have used as the input for this report. If we go into the details for this report, it goes through each pattern definition and lists instances for each definition, highlights with a little background on what the pattern is. So in this case, there's a business entity promotion pattern, and don't worry, I'll demo the patterns in a moment or two here. And then it gets into the details in terms of, let me go to a better example. So for this business modeling pattern, business entity promotion, we have a number of parameters, and on the right-hand side, we list the elements or values that have been bound to each pattern parameter. And again, these are all fully qualified, so you can clearly understand where and how the pattern has been used and what elements participate in the use of the pattern. I'm going to close the report there. Open up my model. So in the main modeling perspective, I've added the Pattern Explorer view into the perspective. Out of the box, RSA ships with a set of design patterns, and you'll see me clicking on that, a set of transformations, transformations going from BPMN to SOA-ML or from SOA-ML to SOA implementation artifacts like WSDL, SCA, etc. And what we've done is we've introduced a set of SOAD patterns, service-oriented analysis and design patterns. Again, these are the 15 patterns spread across business modeling, service identification, and service specification. The inspiration and input for these best practices and patterns comes from Rational Soma, SOA-ML, the articles and red books that I've worked on over the years, experiences and input from other practitioners. As we built this, we showed it to IBMers, we showed it to business partners, we showed it to customers, and we got great input on the information and the types of elements that work together to produce SOA solutions. As you work in the Pattern Explorer, there's documentation in here, a short description of the pattern. It will list each of the participants in the pattern and provides documentation including the multiplicity or cardinality of each parameter, the type required, and a description. So with that in mind, let's get started. So I have my model here, and we mentioned the idea of model constraints. And so what you're able to do with the model constraints is right-click on the model. I went kind of quick here. select validate. It'll run the validation. And what we've done is we've shipped 7 constraints with the model accelerator, again, across business modeling, service identification, service specification. And as I was saying, it will flag issues. In this case, I've highlighted the first issue. So it says one of my business goals, and in this case, the business goal with the name cost reduction does not have any sub-goals. Consider using the business goal decomposition pattern. According to Rational Soma and others in the industry, as you use your business goals to guide you in designing your services and identifying your services, you typically need to have multiple levels of business goals. You decompose into multiple levels. Having a business goal like cost reduction is just too coarse-grained to be actionable. We need to start to think about how do we actually realize cost reduction, and we decompose it into multiple goals. So let's look at, I've got a number of elements here set up. And so I've created a number of business goals here. And again, I've primed the pump a little bit by creating some of these elements to help the demo along. But the idea here is I've gone into the Pattern Explorer. My constraints have said I have an issue here, and I need to decompose my business goals. I know cost reduction is my high-level goal, and I want to specify a number of sub-goals. And so I'm just dragging and dropping, creating the relationships between the elements. If I adjust my filters here and I show my relationships, we'll see that under the covers, the model has been updated by the pattern instance. We have a traceability link showing that cost reduction is a parameter to this pattern and that these business goals are sub-goals to this parent. And let's just run our model validation again here at this level. And we were able to eliminate, you'll notice that there are warning signs in the corner, little adornments, decorators, showing that there are issues with reduced credit check costs. Cost reduction did have a warning. That one's gone. And if we look in our problems, we see we still have issues with business goal decomposition. Well, we have single application form, eliminate rekeying. Those should be connected to other business goals, either as more detailed goals. The constraint recognizes that you either need to be decomposed, you either need to be a parent or a child. And in this case, we'll probably set things up, and let me do so, that we want to decompose to another level. And so I'm going to make these 2 child goals, and I'll run my validation again. And what we see here is, well, we're left with one issue. And in this case, my change by value is part of my metrics around this business goal. It has a nonsensical value. And so let me put a date in there. And if I run my validation again, my format was off. And the documentation for this details the different formats we accept. I think there's about a half dozen different formats for dates we accept. And so now it is fixed. The performance metrics are there, and we have the hierarchy amongst the different elements, and the relationships were created under the covers. That was one.
Hi, guys. This is Todd Donovan. Many of you may not know me. I was the previous community of practice lead for architecture, design, and construction. And I also work very closely with the development team in developing our SOA tooling for RSA. And I'm also the lead author for Rational Soma. Lee and I had the opportunity to collaborate pretty closely during the development of the SOAD Accelerator. And I'm very excited about what he's done. He and his team have added a tremendous amount of value. His extensive use of patterns further lifts the abstraction of SOA modeling beyond what we have with base RSA. As a result, it increases the probability of successful creation of a model. It reduces the level of expertise in SOA modeling that a team has to have. Their use of things like reporting and then also some of their custom support for things like the litmus testing and goal service modeling brings to life design time governance of the services. It's very good automation of, say, the litmus testing approach, the goal service modeling. So in my opinion, this is a win-win for organizations because they can do good SOA modeling with lower skilled people, and they also have greater assurance that what they're doing is aligned with their business. And also, as Lee was just indicating with his constraints, it also increases the probability that things are hooked together properly in the models, that the models as they are constructed are being constructed properly. Just a win-win for everything.
And I got to say that, reporting in general, thank you, Todd, for that. I always get the question about RSA. Gee, I can put all this great information in, but how do I get reports out of it? And, that's actually a fairly trivial thing through some of the stuff that we had showed earlier, and, of course, BERT reporting and, of course, Design Manager, if anyone's not familiar with RSA Design Manager. And I know we do have folks from GBS that are on today, and they often are asking those same questions. And, these are options for our customers to do reporting out of the model in a very easy fashion. So, Lee, it looks like you might be ready to pick back up here in the last 15 minutes we have.
Yeah, I'm going to show this in one more demo, and we'll wrap up with a couple slides. As Todd and Roger were talking, and thank you for the input, I went through another pattern called a structured business-driven scenario. And so another approach to identifying your services or candidate services is to do business use case realization. And what this pattern does is, one, it guides you. What are the elements that you would need to drive you through use case realization? So in this case, a business goal, we define a business use case. If necessary, we can hover over the pattern instance, and we can actually create the instance via the pattern. In this case, I had pre-created the elements. We specify business actor, worker, and a scenario where a business use case can have one or more scenarios. And what the pattern did for us is it created relationships between the use case to the business goal to the actor. It created a use case realization element for us. Within the use case realization, it created an interaction for us, and it created lifelines for each of the participants in the interaction. So what this has allowed us to do is to minimize the number of clicks needed to create these different elements. It created the traceability links for us and put us to the point now where we do the problem solving and we figure out how these elements come together to help us realize the functionality required to realize this scenario.
That is pretty slick. Very cool feature.
All right. I'm going to jump ahead here a little bit. And so we saw the service litmus test earlier on, and we saw, I highlighted the idea that we wanted to indicate from a number of different perspectives what is the status of the service? Has it been considered? Has it been analyzed? And so this is a thing that requires human input. Is this technically feasible? We can't automate that analysis, but we do need to track it. We need to remind people to do it, and we need to report on it. And so what we've done is we've created a pattern instance to capture this information. And so what I'm going to end up doing is connecting. Oops. One second here. I had the wrong element on my diagram. All right, let's do it here with inventory management. And you'll notice that was actually part of the demo. The pattern instance is aware of the types required. So you'll notice it gave the little message that's an invalid element. So you want to perform this test against a capability. And then to actually record the results, it's just Boolean values. You're able to select your element. And in this case, I'll say one is false. I'll mark the rest as true, indicating that it is business aligned. It is technically feasible. It is composable. But right now it doesn't have an external description. So, of course, you wouldn't sit here and just in 3 seconds click all of these elements. You would fill it out over time as it makes sense. You can use the reports to highlight the current status. And as we get to the point where we want to go and say that, hey, we do have an external description now, We specify that as true, and you'll notice a new keyword has been added to this element saying that it's passed its litmus test. So now when we add it to diagrams, we'll see that additional indication that this capability has passed our litmus test. All right. And I will just highlight again the fact that there are the 15 different patterns, and we don't have time to go through all of them today. But we do have some videos up on our website that provide that information, and we'll give you an overview of a number of additional patterns. And the other thing that we have done is, I'm going to stop sharing there, is we've also produced an ebook that goes through each of the patterns, the constraints, the reports, the importance of architecture, guidance on modeling, highlights of the features provided by RSA, introductions to SOA ML, business modeling, and it's a free download. It's a PDF. It's a great resource. And just yesterday, we've also made it available as a hard copy as well, although for that there is a charge. We've done some self-publishing, so essentially we're covering our costs on the production. But if you just want the PDF, you're welcome to grab it from our website. So with the accelerator, our focus is really on helping people produce higher quality SOA solutions, to get those solutions created more quickly, and to produce more valuable services. We're truly doing analysis and being thoughtful in what we produce. And so why do we care about that? Well, the SOA benefits that are listed on this screen, by following an SOA approach, we get higher quality solutions. We're able to reduce time to market. We increase the ease of doing business. We get better system consistency. We reduce the cost of our solutions. These benefits of SOA are amplified through the use of the model accelerator. And by amplifying these benefits, we're more quicker and are able to amplify our business outcomes. We're able to increase revenue, reduce costs, and increase satisfaction. We're able to mitigate risk and avoid costs, and generally deliver results that the business expects. As I've mentioned, we've been working with a number of business partners, customers, and IBMers. In terms of feedback we're getting, it has been very positive in terms of the capabilities of the platform. Here we have a quote from one of our business partners, Greg Hodkinson, who's the Tool Methodology Practice Director of Prolifics, and just talks about he's enamored with the capabilities provided, how it brings patterns to life, and the speed at which we can create high-quality SOA solutions. On the next slide here, we have a Rational SOMA expert talking about their excitement for using the accelerator, the patterns, the reports for supporting service governance and ensuring that we are producing the right services. And that may lead to a decision where we need to filter out and not even produce some services. We need to be making the right decisions, and the accelerator provides the information to make those decisions. In terms of next steps, I know we have a mixed audience here. For practitioners, I encourage you to contact us to request a trial. I mentioned the ebook earlier. It has an overview of each of the patterns, the constraints, and a lot of other guidance around creating SOA solutions. If you are a business partner, contact us to become a reseller or a partner for solution delivery. And if you're an IBMer, we encourage you to contact us. We will help you get ramped up and show you how to work with the model accelerator. It is great for delivering demos. I know we had some issues today, and I apologize for that. We're doing this off my demo machine, and clearly I've done something. Typically RSA is rock solid. And at the end of the day, we think customers will be happy and thrilled with using the accelerator and creating their solutions. And for an IBMer, happy customers leads to a happy life. I mentioned contacting us, so I have some links here for you via the web. Here is our URL. You can contact us via email, either through our general info email. My email information was on the front slide. You can contact us by phone or follow us on Twitter. I have some backup slides after this you're welcome to peruse. I believe the slides will be made available by Roger, but if not, please drop me a note. And
yes, that's correct.
With that, let's open it up to questions.
Right, and Lee, I'll just ask if you have some of those links, post those to the DeveloperWorks entry that has this, invitation, so that everyone can go there and visit that page and get the links and have a dialogue with you in that DeveloperWorks group.
Absolutely.
With that, I will conclude today's SOA briefing, and I thank you for your attendance. Have a great day.